from a descendant of the Wappingers, and they've had a unique struggle, and they're also close relatives of the Ramapo. And I always think this, David travels constantly, and he's a jeweler, an excellent, top-notch native jeweler, and he's always traveling, so just to catch him and try to intercept my conferences with where he might be flying by so that he could say a few words. But we've been good friends for a long 20 years.
Here. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Evan. Pleasure to be here. My name is David Fescier, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Wappingers. You probably heard of the thing where the natives sold Manhattan Island for some trinkets. That was our people. I can tell you that never happened. So you can ignore that story. Our territory was quite vast. We had Manhattan Island, all the way up towards Wappinger Falls, east of that, and lower parts of Greenwich, Connecticut. So that was our territory. We were one of the first ones to meet Henry Hudson, and that didn't go over too well. He didn't like us. He considered us hostile. It's believed that most Wappingers no longer exist. I can tell you right now that I do exist, and there are about several families left that can trace their heritage back to the Wappinger Confederacy. Very quickly, just to tell you the story of what my grandmother told me. What happened was around the mid-1800s, I believe 1856, I believe the date was, the Wappinger Falls, there was a fire, and the town was almost burned down. They said it was a factory fire. That's not true. It was the Wappingers. We were very displeased with the way we were being treated, and they set fire. At that point, whatever families were left, the Wappingers were hunted down. Many of them went up into what is now, Massachusetts. But a handful of us took boats down to Hudson, and we escaped towards now parts of Brooklyn, specifically Canarsie and Staten Island. And my great-great-grandmother, the child at the time, was adopted by an Italian family. And you gotta realize, if you were lucky enough back then to be adopted, you had to be very quiet about it. And they were told, yes, we will take you in, but you're no longer native. You have to be Italian. And because back then, when you were native, you were considered lower below. That's the reality of it. So what happened is she was brought up as under an Italian family. And none of this was ever spoken about. My grandmother knew the story, never told any of the relatives except me, because she saw what I was doing at the time. I didn't find this out until I was like in my early 30s, because I took an unusual interest toward Native American studies. I was very close to that, and she didn't want to really tell me the story. She kind of was like, are you sure, this? And I kept asking her, Grandma, are you sure we're not Native? And she, no, we're Italian. Anyway, to make a long story short, when she finally realized I was not going to get on this, she sat me down and told me the story. And it was verified by some professors that knew the story. She said, oh yeah, he said to me, oh yeah, your grandma is exactly right. You guys burned the town down and you took off and you were hunted. And right around the area where the World Trade Center, that specific area, a whole village of Wappingers were slaughtered in that very same area. So I think it's important that I tell the story and that people notice it's not about reparations or blaming the white man or something like that. It's important to know, because if you're going to move forward as a country, you have to realize what was done in the past and never again to repeat those mistakes. We cannot sugarcoat what happened. We can't go blaming people, but we can say, is this happened to us? Okay, now let's move forward. I tell people, I never assimilated, I adapted to the system where we now find ourselves in, and that's the key. Assimilation versus adaptation. So I adapted into what we have now. And I did not assimilate into it. I kept my traditions alive, and most of our language, unfortunately, is gone. The dialect is gone. But I do what I can to keep that story alive, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.